Okay, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag,
United
United
States
States of America,
and to the
to the
republic
republic,
for which it
for which
stands,
stands
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
liberty
indivisible.
and justice for all. So, thanks, Bill. Thank you, everybody who's out there in remote land for joining us. We just we're doing some testing here where we had Dr. Massera and his cabinet in the boardroom and trying to set up so we could see everybody's faces. We had some audio reverb issues, which took us a little bit to clear up. So thank you for your patience. We appreciate it. We hope everybody is doing well out there. We're going to start with the reopening day part of the superintendent's report, right, Ron?
Yes, thank you.
You got it.
All right, so I'd like to start just, of course, by, as I did in my opening welcome back kind of video presentation, by thanking the entire community. You know, the reopening, the task of reopening our school started back in March of last year when we started to have to do the initial shift to distance learning. And it was something that I have to say was, you know, it was a trial by fire because it had to happen very quickly. We were lucky that we were ahead of the curve in terms of moving quickly and recognizing early on what we would need to do. And so I just want to thank our teaching staff, our administrative team, and everybody in the community that really exhibited extraordinary amounts of patience and support for what we were trying to accomplish as a district. Once we knew that this was going to be a long-term situation for us and that reopening was not going to be very simple, we did begin right in June by putting together reopening teams. And those reopening teams met on several occasions. We had upwards of 60 people in our community or 70 people in our community that worked on various teams to work toward reopening. I have to say that, you know, obviously one of the initial things, and I've said this before, I've talked about this, we had multiple reopening meetings and presentations through our community where we expressed what our plan was and the logistics as well as the rationale behind our plan. You know, when push came to shove and when things were at odds, the one thing that we really had to commit to was a commitment to health and safety. And so that really drove everything we were doing in terms of our plan. We did not compare ourselves to anybody else. We looked at our resources. We looked at our infrastructure. We looked at our classrooms. We looked at our instructional spaces. We looked at the capacity of our personnel in every area, whether it be cleaning and sanitization, whether it be transportation, whether it be actual capacity within individual classrooms. And we put together a plan that was really the best responsible plan that we could put together as a team. As I said, it was countless hours with many, many people and lots of people contributing to that plan. And I'm pleased to say that the first 2 weeks have gone off very well from our perspective. Is it perfect? It's never going to be perfect, folks, and I recognize that. But I do want to say that we are doing everything we can to try to ensure that whether kids are in person in our hybrid model or on full distance learning, we are essentially providing the highest quality education we can. So again, a big thank you to our community. You know, we are now, you know, into that second week. Tomorrow we'll welcome back our white cohort for Thursday and Friday this week. And again, as part of our plan, what we suggested was that we were going to be flexible and we were going to be responsive to anything that comes our way. One of the things that we're seeing in districts, and I've got a count of 16 districts on Long Island have already either closed down, partially closed down a building fully, or quarantined cohorts or closed down cohorts. So what we're seeing is approximately 16 to 17% of the districts on Long Island have already had some sort of a shutdown. I'm not going to say it's inevitable that we're going to close down, but our district needs to be prepared to make a switch to distance learning on a moment's notice. And I think we are prepared. I did send an email earlier in the week to all of our teachers saying that, hey, cite the evidence. We know that a couple local districts just today, one of the local districts had to close down for the day, and they're shutting down one of their cohorts for 14 days. District just to the east of us. Another little district to the east of us shut down as well 2 days ago. So we're seeing it locally, and we're seeing it across Long Island, and we just need to be prepared because, again, the health and safety of our kids is first and foremost in our plan. But again, commendations to our teachers. I think despite the different kind of opening, I think when I go into the buildings, when I see kids and I see their faces and their excitement, the one thing I can say is with the smaller class sizes, I am seeing kids that are kind of getting a little bit, a little bit more individualized attention in the time they are in the classroom. So that's a positive. And I am pleased to say that when I walk into those classrooms and when I walk through the halls of Clayton Huey, I'm still seeing, I might not be able to see the smiles, but I can see their eyes light up, and I can see that they are happy to be back and they are enjoying, breathing life back into the schools of the Salem Richest School District. So just again, thanks to the Board of Education for your trust in me and my team to be able to put these plans in place. Thanks to our community for your support that has really been unwavering throughout this entire process. And thanks to our teachers, just really feeling blessed and lucky to have the kind of support we have for what is going to shape up to be a unique, but I think a pretty fantastic 2020-2021 school year. So thank you, George.
Oh, thank you, Ron. We appreciate it. We appreciate everything that everybody's doing. And I know that we're being reflective as we move through this process, and anytime that we can change things for the better, we're doing it, and we're doing it as quickly as we can, and we'll continue to do that as we move forward. So thank you.
Yeah, our administrative team does have our first, again, we did schedule specific look back dates where we would do some analysis. Again, we led with that idea of testing capacities, right? Testing, what does it look like to maintain social distancing in each of these environments? What does it take to make sure that kids are wearing their PPE? What does it take to make sure that we're cleaning and sanitizing all our facilities? And we're feeling pretty confident. One of the first changes we made was we realized that, we were partnering, and one of the we didn't have many people come forward and, with concerns about our plan, but one of the concerns was that we were relying on our parents to take temperatures. And you know what? I said from the start, I said, well, you know what? I can count on our parents because I can count on them as partners, and I'm okay with that. But what we did realize as kids were coming in was that we did have the capacity. We had enough thermometers. We had enough personnel willing to be out there and help us. And we are now taking temperatures of every child that comes in. So while we asked parents to monitor their children's health, we did make a pivot in just the first week to one change. Our next first look back period, where we're going to have a couple weeks of data to examine our practices and protocols, is on the 21st. So on Monday, we're going to be looking again the rest of this week. Now we'll have our first full weekend, and we're going to be able to look back and say, all right, well, what does this mean for our ability to handle capacity? And we're going to make some decisions and some recommendations for how we proceed.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we want to do what we've been doing, Ron, and piece out the questions? Do you want to take some now on reopening, and then we'll move on to our next presentation?
I would obviously preface that by, if there are specific, questions that are building specific, the principals are not, here on this call right now. Anything that would be building specific, I would ask that, the community to reach out to their teachers, their building level principals. But certainly I would take any questions with regard to our overall plan and the way in which we're doing things.
Okay, so then let's do that. We'll take questions specifically about reopening. If anybody has some broad district level questions that they want to bring up, concerns, Bill, let me know if you have anybody.
If you use the raise hand feature, if you want to speak, I can unmute you.
Sorry, I forgot to tell them that.
That's okay. Nobody yet.
Okay.
Nope, scanning the list. No hands raised.
Okay. So we always have time again at the end if something comes up between now and the end of the board meeting. We'll move on to our next. It's a presentation and a conversation, right? Ron?
Great, yeah. So the next part of this is, typically we like to, the board and I had a retreat earlier in the summer. And we began to, we've gone back and forth talking about some of our goals. We talked about last year's goals. Late in the last school year, we did do a presentation of our goal status. And so I think it's appropriate at this time to take a look at our district goals. And I want to keep in mind that we'll be looking to adopt our district goals in our October meeting from the board. But I did take some time to do some revisions, and I'll pull those up right now, and we'll basically kind of show the format and what that potentially can look like in terms of what our goals would be heading into. Typically, what we do is
Ron, I'm sorry. Can I ask you? Can you just bigify that a little bit? Put it to 150%.
George, did you just make up a word?
Bigify.
Bigify?
George, I listen, George, I'm the one holding the doctorate, and I don't know that word. And I believe I'm the only one in the room authorized to make up words. So
well, I've been using that word for a long time. So yeah, see, now it's bigified. And it's much easier
You're gonna
for
have
me
to
to
pinch
see.
it.
Now that my screen is bigified, I'd like to share that this is part of our process where the board essentially establishes some overarching goals, and we've had some conversation about those goals. I want you to keep in mind that these are absolute 100% drafts at this point, but just some of our working language for what we'll be looking at. Essentially, one of the things that we've looked at, and our first goal is this idea of creating 21st century learning environments. And so the board, the idea that the Board of Education is dedicated to providing the necessary resources to ensure district facilities are well maintained and promote a safe and secure 21st century learning environment. We seek to develop a long-term plan to preserve and enhance our capital assets while being mindful of the economic needs and desires of the community. So that would be an overarching goal. And, that goal looks a little bit different last year than it does this year. This year, some of those goals in terms of 21st century learning environment may have revolved around some things that look different. This year, clearly cleaning and sanitization is going to be a part of that, because we know that our routines have drastically changed this year. So in here, we are going to be changing that. One of the things that we know we need in a 21st century learning environment is the idea of having laptops accessible to all kids. So making, and I'm just trying to bigify it just to the right size here. Excuse me. There we go. That's about as big as I can get it, George.
Perfect.
All right, good. So, clearly, this year we do have a new architect. So, from an administrative standpoint, I think that we want to get acclimated with our new architects. We want to make sure that our architects are working with us. We have had contact with them. There is actually a plan for what's called a building condition survey report. We are not in the queue for that, but our architects have assured us that they can help us to make sure that we can get that done now and be able to utilize the data in that so that we can make sure our facilities are in a good place and they can inform our facilities advisory committee. So that was one thing. We are also in the midst of, we recognize we need to be good environmental stewards in terms of our facilities. So we did in the past, the board last year passed an energy performance contract. We are now in the implementation phase. So we are looking from the administrative side to oversee the implementation of the energy performance contract. We put language in there to that. In addition, we are
Ron, I'm sorry. Before you scroll past that, the energy, that has been delayed a bit by the pandemic, correct?
Correct, but not. I don't think we're far off timeline though. I think we should be able to be in a position where we are. Phase 1 should go through this year. Pardon?
Yeah, probably by springtime. Early winter,
Spring.
early spring, start getting the work going.
And then some
Yeah,
sites
but
over the
it
summer.
was. Kerry, it was a little delayed, right? A couple of months?
We did get a little bit delayed
Right.
with the closure of the buildings, but they picked right back up on track and all the paperwork has been submitted as of 2 weeks ago.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Thank you.
The continued exploration of shared service opportunities is something that we continue to do. I am in direct contact on a weekly basis with the county. And so even such things as, procurement of PPE and COVID-related supplies is something that we're constantly in contact with the town, with the county, and looking at opportunities to save in terms of purchasing. So the idea of implementing COVID-related procedures, we needed to examine every single protocol with regard to use of visitors, with regard to how our arrival procedures. So an enormous amount of energy went into implementing building level procedures at each site so that we can ensure that we have a safe and orderly opening that, again, preserves health and safety. So looking at that, developing contact tracing plans, developing health screenings, developing all things that we have never done before are things that we've needed to do and we continue to revise. I will be sharing yesterday, as I indicated, I shared some comments with our staff about looking at the local news and seeing that we may be in a position where we need to transition to remote learning at the drop of a hat. Tomorrow, I will be communicating with my administrative team and kind of finalizing what I'm going to refer to as a playbook for the transition to remote learning, so that in the event something happens, that it's really clear what we need to do, what steps we need to take to make that transition and to make that switch. Because as much as we say it's like flipping a switch, it's not that easy. But we still want to, we still are concerned with our long-term facilities, and we want to, if possible, we would love to establish a capital reserve. This was on the books last year. At the end of the year last year, we decided we did not want to convolute a vote, especially a vote that was going to be one that was by paper ballot. So we did not put the establishment of a capital reserve up. I would recommend, I think it's always good to have a capital reserve established. So I would make a recommendation that we continue to do that and keep that as a goal for the coming year.
I'm sorry, Ron, if we could just explain quick, Kerry, what would the funds from a capital reserve, what type of things would they target?
They target any capital projects as a whole. We could do either repairs or new construction or reconstruction. We do have a repair reserve in place, so it's not necessarily a need to do repairs through a capital reserve because we already have one set for those particular items. But a capital reserve, if we do reconstruction of items or additional items that add on to our buildings and facilities as a whole, some field work, some repairs to the tennis courts. We had a list, the facilities committee had an extensive list, the new roofs, maybe looking at air conditioning district-wide again. Some of the items that got pulled off of the last capital project
Right.
need to be revisited of what has not been accomplished. And those would be able to be done through a capital reserve once we have it established and start building it up. And then those items that we spend that money on are reimbursable through building aid.
Okay, and we need
Okay.
voter approval for it to
Correct.
establish it. Do we
Right.
need voter approval to spend from it?
Yes.
Correct. It's double. You need a voter approval 2 times.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
That was all my questions.
Get through the budget process.
Right.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Question for you, Carrie, also?
I'm sorry, Marcus?
Question for Carrie also?
Yeah.
The capital reserve would be an alternative or an additional way to fund capital projects in addition to taking on new bonds?
Correct. And it could be done in place of, instead of doing bonds or in conjunction with a bond. So the reserve itself would be very specific as to what work we could use that money for.
It's
so
like a
it would-
savings account for bigger construction projects.
And so it would eliminate the debt service for that particular amount of spending.
Correct.
Correct.
And do you have a rough estimate, Carrie? I know it depends on when the different bonds fall off. How much are we paying just in the debt service every year?
We have over $2 million a year in debt.
Okay.
Half of that is, how much of that is just interest as the service for beyond the principal?
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure, but we can get you updated debt schedules.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Thanks.
Okay, you know, along with the actual visitor protocols and all those other things, you know, we really had to look and reinvent and continue to reinvent all our cleaning and sanitization protocols. You know, following the CDC, the New York State Department of Health, and New York State Education Department guidance, it's important that, again, you know, we have not, you know, this year yet had any cases reported that we needed to address, knock on wood, but in the event they are, we are going to be implementing protocols that are new. And when we go to do so, we will follow those guidelines, but may also need to reinvent. We had to purchase equipment that we've never used before, and there are many different things that we had to do. So we want to make sure that those things are in place moving forward. The second goal, and again, a goal that is certainly in line with the roles and responsibilities of a Board of Education, is the fiscal oversight. So fiscal and educational solvency in the tax cap environment is an overarching goal of the Board of Education that we can drill into with administrative goals. And I think that it's important, you know, and if I read this, you know, and I'll just read it for the sake of reading it, but the Board of Education is dedicated to the development of a stronger and deeper level of fiscal health to meet the needs of our students and the broader community of supporting taxpayers through short and long-term fiscal planning. We will enhance programmatic offerings and maintain safe, environmentally sound school facilities. So essentially what that means is all things revolving around school finance. We are in a unique situation this year, and everything is going to, you know, as you've read in the papers, right now there's a 20% pullback on our state aid payments. That's pretty significant, and if that holds true and we don't get any kind of federal backfill, that's going to significantly impact us. Later on the agenda, you'll see, you know, the legislature did pass some flexibility for use of reserves. One of the things in terms of, you know, I'll get to another goal about diversity, equity, and inclusivity, but equity has become a hot topic for everyone, and in particular in educational circles around the COVID environment. So when we talk about equity, we are looking at this unprecedented flexibility that we now have with reserves to be able to utilize reserves for COVID-related expenses, including purchase of technology like Chromebooks, and I'll talk a little bit about that later, which we are looking to do. And so, you know, taking a look at our reserves is going to be important, because if we are going to spend out of our reserves and use some money for COVID-related expenditures, we want to do so wisely and with a plan in mind. So we have a goal around that. We always do a 4-year financial plan. We know the COVID-related expenses are not just a one-time, you know, they didn't just impact the 1920 school year or the 2021 school year, but we project that this will be out all the way through the 2023-2024 school year. So we do need to have a solid 4-year financial plan that factors in, you know, what we know we can control, as well as make some predictions on, you know, from the best information that we have. So we will be looking to update our 4-year financial plan. You know, when I talk about equity, and what you're going to see is each of our goals, whether they be the 21st century learning environment, whether they be about the you know, about the fiscal and educational solvency, all of these things are going to have an equity thread through them. And as I said earlier, this idea of looking at our reserves and being able to use the unprecedented flexibility in reserves for COVID-related expenses, now's the time to say that we need to come to a place where we are providing the technology for all kids, and being able to get to that place where we have a one-to-one instructional platform. And so that's, ensuring equitable access to technology resources, the administration feels very strong to be a priority. We did also, State Education Department, a capital outlay project is a little bit different than a capital reserve. A capital outlay project allows us to, if we have a capital outlay, we can budget $100,000. That's the maximum allowable. They are looking to increase that. But if in fact we're in a position where we can budget that, it is wise to budget it because we can utilize that for capital improvements upwards of $100,000 and still receive aid on that. As Kerry Laughlin indicated, we do have a repair reserve. However, a repair reserve is not a reserve where you get aid on. So it is advisable to utilize a capital outlay and maximize it to the extent you can, so that if a project comes about that you want to put up, you can and get that aid back. So those are, moving on to goal 3. This is about the teaching and learning and building the idea of students as self-directed learners, that the board is dedicated to supporting inquiry-based curriculum initiatives and professional development that aligns to rigorous academic standards and the social and emotional needs of all kids. We seek to develop self-directed learners who are prepared to compete in a technology-driven and globally interconnected world. And these essentially are just that. We're looking at, and when we say establish a comprehensive education plan that includes in-person, remote, and hybrid, you see that this is a little bit more responsive to developing an instructional plan that is responsive to this need to be able to, again, I keep going back to this idea of switching on a moment's notice from one instructional platform to another. So we have invested, and we are planning to continue to invest in platforms that will help us to leverage technology. This is difficult. This has been a real challenge for everybody, and we recognize the effort our teachers are putting in. But we also know that where there's challenge, there's opportunity, and that's what we want to emphasize. That when this challenge came, we saw it as an opportunity to push ourselves, get better at what we do, and know that we come out the other side. When we actually get past this and we are 100% fully in person, we will be able to leverage technology like we never have before and be able to provide a quality of education that we have never done before, because not only will we have the best of the best standing in front of kids teaching, we will have teachers who know how to integrate technology resources and leverage the assessment and different collaborative tools and everything that these platforms offer to be able to enhance what we do in our classrooms. So we felt like that was an important goal to put in there and providing the necessary PD for it. The curriculum and initiatives that include self-directed inquiry and standards-based learning in a positive school climate. Clearly, we are in that first year of our IB and DP and MYP authorization, and we feel really, really great about all the kids that are now taking those classes, and we know that we want to basically be able to support them and know that these are really positive additions to our program that will lead to just enhanced opportunities for kids.
Ron, I just have a quick question. We took a step back from PYP this year, correct? Like we're still working, but we're not actually moving towards it?
Like, for example, if we were on the traditional track with PYP, we would have had our 2-day full faculty training in the beginning of this year, which would have been a significant expense, and in light of everything going on with constructing the reopening plan, instructional plan for hybrid learning, it really wasn't possible. But it doesn't mean that we're going to just forget about the initiatives, especially the program of inquiry that people have worked on, they've done curriculum writing for, they're still piloting units. So we're just slowing it down significantly, I think. Okay. Best way to put it. I don't want people to feel that they're cut off from the work that they've already done in that, but we're in more of a holding pattern, just trying to get things solidified with the scenario that we're in terms of hybrid and remote learning.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you.
Available for those teachers if it helps them in in building their, hybrid classes and because the inquiry and the self-directed learning piece is still a part of our instructional world.
Right, and we're still seeing it as we're progressing forward, and we're following, like sort of the tenets of IB, and continuing to, promote it and utilize the professional.
Right, like learner profile is something still very manageable to promote within the building, without it being really cumbersome for teachers. So we're trying to pick and choose things carefully.
Gotcha. Thank you.
One of the things the board, and I talked about in our, retreat, was this idea that, using data, and we always use data, but the board wanted to see, a little bit more of that. And so we're going to commit to, keeping these, the focus on individualized educational planning, so that we can really be meeting the needs of every kid and identify gaps. And so looking at some of that and making sure that we do several presentations throughout the year, for the Board of Education, so the board can be informed and learn from the data and understand, some of the things we're using, and how we're utilizing the data to basically inform how, the things we're doing in the classrooms. So 3C is that idea of, really drilling into data a bit more with the board.
I'm sorry. I think it's probably a question for Raina with regards to 3C. How are we doing with anecdotal data collection process?
So I'm meeting with the teachers at the secondary level, and really I'll go through really all the levels to see, what's feasible and what format, we can really do that. Is it more in the form of a Google form where I can ask, very briefly questions periodically, because I feel very strongly about that idea in terms of anecdotal data. Gives us tremendous feedback. It gives parents and students tremendous feedback. So we'll definitely have something in place, I would say within the first half of the year, where we can share. And I think, from the teacher's perspective, that gives them a voice, regardless of who's presenting the data, because it's something, observations that they see in terms of students, like, it could be simple questions like, what are students really grasping? In this particular subject area or in this grade level, what are they really struggling with and why? So I think that simple conversational piece, without creating a burden on teachers in terms of, producing that data or, housing it somewhere, is definitely possible.
Okay, so kind of in the exploratory stage.
Yeah, but I think we could, by mid-year have some, solid feedback to share with the board and the community.
Okay. Thank you.
One of the things that we clearly want to do is enhance our whether it be for college planning, whether it be for social emotional supports. We really want to enhance the resources and services through our counseling center. And so we're going to be looking at that data. Ms. Fabian is now in the role as the guidance director of guidance, and so she is got a lot of great ideas. And we're going to be looking at additional ways to enhance the services through our counseling center. Going for the community engagement and communication. Last year we made a big shift over toward use of social media and multiple means of communication. I hope the community is enjoying the fact that my weekly talk show is back. But as painful as it is for me to make those videos, I'm hoping that it is at least getting information out to the community, and they are enjoying, getting updates, so that we can make sure that they are well informed. But clearly communication and community engagement is critical. As I always say, that the level of support that we've had from this community, to me, is unprecedented. I am overwhelmed by the level of support, and I think it's in direct relation to our community communication and the engagement level that we have with our community. So I always am very grateful and appreciative of the board, for supporting me in this, and of our community for being so wonderful with regard to, following us and you know, and supporting the things we're trying to implement. Some of the things we would like to do, you know, last year we began live streaming, you know, before COVID even, we began live streaming board meetings. We clearly want to continue in that regard. Right now, this is the first meeting where the entire cabinet and the district clerk are sitting in the same room since COVID started. But we wanted the community to know we're back. You know, we're here, we're back, we're ready to work. You know, we never left, but we're back together as a team, working hard to make sure that we're doing everything we can for the children and families of Center Merchants. And so we're all here together. You know, they did extend the virtual meetings for the open meetings law through October 4th. Uncertain whether they'll continue to do it, and there certainly are restrictions on the number of participants. So one way or another, if we are back as a full board meeting, we will do so in a responsible manner. But we will certainly, you know, again, leverage our resources so that we can, you know, we can stream live Board of Education meetings, and we can be completely accessible to, so that there's a discourse back and forth with the community as well. We also want to, you know, last year we got a little sidetracked. We would like to, you know, complete a survey of our community. And actually, I shouldn't say we got sidetracked. Our survey just looked different. You know, our survey looked like, how did we do with distance learning? And we gathered feedback from our community. What we really want to gather is other feedback about our, you know, about our responsiveness, about our school culture and climate. And so, you know, while we did reach out, we did conduct some surveys and did a lot of data analysis. It was a little bit different in purpose, but certainly we did do that last year. You know, I moved last year we had a standalone goal of policy review. And that policy review was something that we were unable to manage last year, but you know, I don't want to take it off, even if this is something that we are sidetracked from and don't get to. I think it's so important that we bring our policy book in alignment with current laws and regulations, and it's aligned to what our community's culture and beliefs are. So we really want to make sure that we do a thorough review of that. There are services that can do that, and you know, we will see you know, what the budget permits in terms of being able to do that. But I think that would be one in the you know, for the community and communication and community engagement, because it would really need to be tied to what the community would like to see.
I'm sorry. Bill, can you just unmute Danielle Dench? She accidentally muted herself. Sorry, Ron.
No, that's a problem.
Thank you, Bill.
No problem. Okay, and then, you know, goal 5, you know, is our standalone goal. You know, as I said, I think diversity or equity in and of itself is threaded through all of our board goals, but as a standalone goal, and I think that this is one where I think the board wants to probably build out more with me a bit. And again, these are all in draft format right now, but this idea of diversity, equity, inclusivity to foster a positive school culture. You know, as a board, I think we pledge to operate within the district's mission statement and to use this statement as well as our district policy to create policies and procedures that support equitable practice to ensure educational excellence for all students within the Center Merchants Union Preschool District. We want to ensure that we are focused on any practices that will create equity and support all kids. I'm actually editing as I'm seeing the thing.
I saw that too, Ron.
I'm sorry about that. It's like, I have to fix it before you.
The first draft error.
Yes.
Acceptable.
But you know, we are creating a Board of Education Standing Committee on DEI. I think that that's important, and what we want to know, what we want to do is we want to make sure that everybody knows this. We've already had a couple of community members reach out and say, I'm so glad you're doing this. I put this out in a community message and I want to be a part of that work. And I'm happy to have anybody that would do it. Janine Barr put out just the other day on our website, there is a link on our front page for all the Board of Education committees. So I can show you that just as I finish this. But the committees, they are open enrollment for committees. If anybody is interested in joining any of our committees, we can we welcome them. And like I said, I will show where that link is in a moment. But
Ron,
you go ahead.
I'm sorry, since we're talking about committees here and they're open to everybody, can we either, at some point talk about live streaming those as well?
Oh, good idea.
If that's something that we could do with it. And when I say that, I mean, if it's appropriate and if we also have the ability to do it. I know often these committees break up into subcommittees and that would prove challenging.
Mm-hmm.
But certainly something I'd like us to explore if we could.
Okay. Yeah, we could. I mean, certainly, the technology's there. It's a matter of just kind of coordinating and looking at, what that looks like. Some of these committees are likely going to meet, via Zoom for the foreseeable future. So if we are meeting in that format, it clearly makes it much easier to record them.
Yeah, I would also like to see the committees reporting back, from come up with some type of schedule where they report to the board, because that's what they're supposed to be for, correct?
Correct. They're board advisory committees, correct.
Yeah, so I would like to, maybe, establish some type of timeline where, say, the curriculum committee reports, quarterly back to the board so that we know where the direction's going.
Yeah, I think typically when we do the curriculum presentations and things like that, I think a lot of those are work of that committee, but we can clearly express that, and probably do a better job of acknowledging that the work that we're presenting to the board is coming through a committee.
Yes.
With the committees, will the links be available to everybody? Because I seem to remember these committees were open to that the committees were open for anybody, not that you had to actually be appointed, that it was like the open.
Yeah, my understanding is that changed a few years, like prior to my arrival here, because there was some question about quite honestly, the only restrictions to the committees are on the Board of Education. No more than 2 board members can be on any one committee, because otherwise it would constitute an illegal quorum. But any community member certainly could be a member of a committee.
Yeah,
So
it's on the
those
website.
committees, right? Those committees, like when they're meeting, that information will be on the website so people can join. Anybody can join.
Yeah, typically, we are in the process also of working with a company, to revise our website. And I think that when we do that, we're going to be in a much better position. Like right now on our website, on the upper right-hand side, typically there are some upcoming events and the committee meetings get listed there, and it's a quick click on that committee meeting. And then you can access the committee meeting, and then there'll be a link there for the actual meeting itself. So that's kind of how we did it last year. Or last year, most of them were in person. When we pivoted to the distance learning, I'll be honest, at that point, some of the committees fell off a bit because we were just kind of engrossed in the work of the pivot toward distance learning. But this year, so they weren't necessarily Zoom links, they were just informational links about when they were meeting and where they were meeting.
Ron, just to piggyback on Danielle's comment, is there a way like we can get like a calendar up and running where we can set the dates in stone where in years past, sometimes they fall off, like certain committees only meet a couple times a year. I feel if you put it on the calendar, we can really,
Yeah, I mean, in my experience, they basically, a lot of that does happen organically. So for instance, like last year's facility advisory committee, we were meeting on a regular basis, and that was driving a lot of the work with the energy performance contract. You know what I mean? So the architect was there talking with us, and the facilities advisory committee was meeting, and then, the next meeting we would have a meeting with the architect in front of the board, and there'd be a presentation. And like I said, we could clearly probably do a better job talking about the connection to the committees. But I don't want anybody to think that work of the committees is not coming back to the board. Last year, the legislative committee met a couple of times, and I was out there, and then I brought back, the data sheet on it was a sort of an advocacy sheet that I was working that we had built out, and we talked and we utilized that with legislators for advocacy. So, the work does make it back, but you're right, we could formalize it a bit more. I guess it's just been seen as more organic in the past. But yeah, we could try to perhaps create maybe, sort of like we did with, and I'm not sure what we're going to do, because last year we did create a situation where we had each building was doing presentations. I want to build that out again. I just have to work with the principals to figure out how do we do that? How do we engage, you know, like, because the idea was to bring kids into the presentations and things and really get a sense for what's happening in buildings. That's difficult right now, but it's not that it can't be done. Maybe what we could do is we could build out that kind of a schedule to highlight a program in each building at various board meetings, as well as try to strategically think about what would make sense for when committees might report. So hopefully we can build that out, and I'll work on that a little bit and see what we can do.
Great, thank you.
You got it. Okay, so the DEI committee will be working. Also, the you know, we did commit last year to this idea of the Long Island Consortium for Equity and Excellence, and we certainly want to, and all of these things. It's an idea toward professional development with a focus on diversity, equity, and inclusivity. And so LICE, the IB stuff, and all of these things, I think, support this idea of creating excellence and equity. So we want to make sure that when we're looking at our professional development opportunities, when we're approving these kinds of things, that they are aligned to our goals as a district. And clearly professional development is something that we want to make sure is. That's okay. And then finally, the last part of this, and again, it's just a draft right now, but enhancing a positive school culture. So taking a look at you know, some of these things, looking at the negative behaviors, fostering positive behaviors and attitudes. This is idea of you know, we have to build, and again, I'm saying it's a draft because I'm even thinking of more things like building in restorative practices, and we've talked about some of these things, utilizing the SMILES and our leadership students. All of these kinds of things to support a more positive and healthy learning environment for kids. So I'm happy to take feedback from the board, and you know, I will be sharing this out with the board so that the board can take a look at it and provide feedback. Again, you know, I know the typo I fixed earlier, George, won't be the only one you'll see, I'm sure, because it is a work in progress. But it's my pleasure to present them as a first draft, and we can drill deeper into these and build out some more goals and take feedback.
So yeah. And Ron, thank you. I appreciate that and the work that you did, and you know, taking our feedback into account as you went through these SMART goals. And I have to say, the more we go through them, the more I really like the structure of them. I'm glad to see that DEI is being interwoven throughout our goals, and that we also have it as a standalone goal, because as you know, that's something that the board is very passionate about, is making sure we have that diversity, equity, and inclusivity for all. So I do like that as well. And maybe we can just, in further conversations, talk about more of the specifics of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have that attachment that we had put data points on, you know, graduation rates and
Yep.
mastery and so on and so forth. And, you know, often we have to wait for those data points, but some of them are not going to get this year, right? Because those assessments were not given.
Or we'll have to look at it differently.
Yeah, we just have to.
Yeah.
You know, we can.
And that's my point.
Yeah.
We're going to have to make sure that we figure out another way to accurately assess, to make sure that we're continuing to move forward in those areas. So.
Yeah, we won't have projections because they're based on
Right.
years, but you know, we will have, again, you know, the teacher data for report cards and student progress. You know, I think it's more realistic to look at, you know, a projection around midterm, you know, around the January time to set some targets, and then we could still evaluate the targets that we set based on, you know, end of the year assessments. So
Right.
that's our thinking about that right now.
Okay. Does anybody on the board have any comments, questions with regards to the goals? Oh, Bill must have muted everybody.
No, we're not.
No.
No, I had my question about the committees.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you got it.
Robin?
Good work.
No, we were able to kind of jump in while we were going along and helped, and then you just asked the question, the clarification question I need. We're going to get these though, like sent to us, that we can spend a little more time with them.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
There is someone in the audience with a hand raised.
Well, we don't have public participation at this point, Bill.
Okay, just letting you know.
So if we have no more questions from the board on the goals, we can go ahead and move forward with the
Okay.
meeting.
Yeah.
Everybody's good on that?
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Ron, and thank you, everybody, for your work on that.
Absolutely. I'm stopping to share that.
Okay. So that does bring us, we're done with the superintendent's report, Ron? Did you want to speak for another half hour?
No, I just, you know what, let me just for dates, just to, because I don't want anybody to miss it, anybody that is, tomorrow is the open house. It's a virtual open house at Clayton Huey. Please look for, and next week we have that's the 3 to 5 open house. And next week is on the 24th is the K to 2 open house. So just as a point of information, those are virtual. So you will be logging in and being able to, see your teacher and be able to interact just like a typical open house. I could say it was strange, but I did do one last night for my 6th grade daughter. It was very, very interesting, very, very informative. And it was, to me, it was as effective. You don't get the feel of being in the classroom itself, but it was very good. So I would encourage every parent to log in to those open houses. As I said, the 17th, tomorrow, is the 3 to 5. You should get information from Mr. Ricci. And again, if you cannot log in at that time, that's okay. The teachers will make all those resources available to you. Just email them, and they will get right back to you with anything that you may have missed. On the 24th is the K to 2 at Clayton Huey. And then the following week, the 29th and the 30th. 29th is the middle school, and the 30th is the high school. So just bookmark those and plan on attending.
Great. Thank you.
Now I'm done. Good.
Okay. That brings us to questions and comments regarding tonight's agenda only. So if I don't know who had their hand raised earlier, Bill, but if that individual has a question about tonight's agenda, we can take it now. Otherwise, we'll move to the consent agenda, and at the end is the opportunity to ask questions or read a statement about basically anything. So I don't know who had their question.
No hands raised now.
Okay. All right, so then we'll move to the consent agenda. Oh, no, wait, I'm sorry, approval of minutes. My apologies.
Okay.
Board of Ed is asked to accept the minutes of the following meetings as prepared by, oh no. Sorry, I'm reading this off my phone and I switched screens. Accept the minutes of the following meetings as prepared by the district clerk, minutes of the regular meeting of the Board of Ed on August 26, 2020. Motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Motion
Yeah.
carries unanimously. So Janine, I think you take over from here.
Okay, we're at the financial reports. Item 7, financial reports. Be resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, accepts the following financial reports. A, Treasurer's Report from June 2020. B, Budget Transfer General Report, September 2020. Student Activity Report, June 2020.
Motion?
Motion.
Motion second.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
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 Yes. Motion carries unanimously.
We'll move to the consent agenda. Item 8, consent agenda vote. Be it resolved, the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, is asked to motion to approve the consent agenda. Asterisk item, agenda items on the consent agenda items. Consent agenda items are approved via a single vote unless they are removed from being a consent item prior to the vote.
Motion
Motion.
second.
Second.
Discussion. I think that's how we do it, right? So
You
we do want to take some time before we approve the consent agenda to just kind of explain, not kind of, but actually explain to the public Roman numeral 10, business and finance, the liability reserve fund transfer.
So I'll kind of start, and then I'll pivot to and kind of toss to Carrie Laughlin. But essentially, due to the pandemic, the legislature did pass some flexibility in the use of reserves, and that use of reserves is extended essentially to utilize reserves for any COVID-related expenses. As we talked about in the goals, one of the biggest goals we are focused on is diversity, equity, inclusivity, and with equity being a primary goal, and understanding how the pandemic has exacerbated and inequalities and inequities in education. We really are placing a goal of moving, as I indicated in the goals, is moving toward that one-to-one initiative. And in doing so, a purchase of Chromebooks would be essential to be able to make sure that everyone has equal access. So in doing so, I'm going to let Kerry explain how the use of reserves would work and what that repayment would look like under the current regulations.
So with this rate change in the governor's orders and such, we are allowed to use our current reserves that we have in place to make these purchases that are necessary to continue this hybrid model that we're working under. And we are short on Chromebooks to help out some of those distance learners. So we have a need for that. And the way we can access our funds immediately without adjusting the budget and hurting the taxpayers or asking them for the money is to utilize our reserves. One of those is the Liability Reserve, which is in place and has been in place for quite some time, and is only used for specific potential liabilities that may be forthcoming to the district through insurance claims or other specific items that are noted in the original resolution for that particular reserve. Therefore, we are making the recommendation to buy 450 Chromebooks from that reserve, which is about $212,000. And then as a result, we will have to repay that back to the reserve itself over the course of 5 years at 20%. So we're looking about just over $20,000 a year that we would budget every year in the expense budget in order to pay for that. We also have, though, a grant up at the state requesting $100,000 of funds to help support this purchase. So once that grant's approved, we will take that money and help offset some of this expense that we're transferring from the reserve. So by the end of this year, we will have paid back $100,000 already of this reserve use. So we'll only have $112,000 left to pay back over the course of 5 years. Questions from the board?
I think she got it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, George is waiting to be unmuted.
George is muted.
All right, hold on. Where'd he go? George Maxwell, I'm moving.
Thank you, Bill.
Yep.
My dogs were going crazy, so I needed to mute it.
That's it. Hazard of this format.
Yeah. So, so before, thank you so much for that explanation. And I just want, the public to know that these are never easy decisions that we're making, but especially when it comes to the fiscal end and balancing that with what we need to do. But in our dedication to equity and our passion for that, this is something we feel we need to do at this time to make sure that every student has what they need to be successful academically. And that's why it's on the consent agenda for approval. We'll see if it gets approved. But please know that, again, not an easy decision for us to make, and we're going to do it in a very responsible way. So I just wanted to let you know that. And thanks, Ron and Carrie, for your explanation of that and for recognizing what we need moving forward. So thank you. Any more discussion on that? Marcus?
No, I don't know if there should be some comment on how this ties into the bring your own device policy, which is also on the agenda.
Oh, so the bring your own device policy is a policy that's in there. Essentially, it basically, for lack of a better word, I'm going to call it a Band-Aid. until we get to the point where we have the one-to-one initiative. We really need to be in a position where teachers and students can bring in devices of their own. We really can't, what we'd like to do, through a one-to-one initiative, we basically can treat the Chromebook as though it's a textbook and require kids to bring them in on a daily basis to and from school, so that there's that equitable piece in terms of instruction and instructional access. We don't necessarily have that, but we get close to it with the BYOD policy. So we think that this helps us to accomplish what we need to accomplish, while we are not quite yet at that one-to-one that we aspire to be at. Thank you, Marcus. It's a good point to bring that up.
Thank you.
And then going forward, I'd just like to make sure that we're planning for the end of life for the other devices that we had. I know it's definitely fiscally very hard right now, but that we need to just, in order to maintain the one-to-one, continue planning out for that.
Yeah, it clearly, Robin, thank you. It has to be a sustained commitment, and we need to be, obviously, in terms of managing this from a fiscal standpoint, we're clearly going to be doing this, we're doing this as responsible as possible to get this initial push through grant monies that are accessible to us. There are 2 different grant opportunities that are helping us get there. And then, a third of what we're purchasing now would be kind of financed over a few years there through the repayment of reserves at no interest to us. So that's why we're suggesting this is as fiscally responsible as we can to be able to get to this. But certainly there will be additional costs incurred for the replenishment of devices that reach end of life.
Anyone else? Okay, so I think we just go all in favor and vote, because we already have a motion in a second. So all in favor? Yes?
Yes.
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 Motion carries unanimously. That brings us, I believe, new business discussion item, number 12 and number 13. Do we have new business or anything for discussion?
No, we don't have anything
I
in
think
those.
we're discussed out.
We're just admiring the new format that you put together.
Yeah. Yeah, but I don't know. I'm really not that bright, so it's kind of hard for me to follow. I don't remember new business or discussion item on this before.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure that we're doing it correctly.
Yeah, we don't have anything on those, so we do skip over those. But
Okay, so then we can go to the general public questions.
Mhm.
So this is an opportunity, if you have any questions about really anything, I guess, or any comments you want to make or statement you want to read, just use that hand raising feature, and Bill Nofee will unmute you. Then you could ask away.
Okay, we have one already. GL.
Yes, hi. Ooh.
Ooh.
Hello?
Hello?
Hi.
Yes, hi. I'm having a Board of Ed party. I'm having a Board of Ed party, so we had a couple of devices going. I had to do some troubleshooting. Thank you, everybody, first of all, for your endurance and stamina to do meeting after meeting the way you're all doing. And I live it from many points of view, as a community member, as a parent, as a supporter of our district and our community, and also as an educator.
Can I ask who we're talking to, by the way? I'm sorry. Can you just tell us who you are?
Yes, my name is Gabrielle Lambiazzi.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Gabrielle.
Yes, no problem. And so now that we're living it, I'm saying to myself, I couldn't wait to go on tonight to hear all of you. And I'm so sad to see there's only 28 people. But that's because I think everybody's just hiding under the bed right now, frankly, of exhaustion. So I don't think it's anything negative. I just think we're all running out of gas very rapidly. But I want to bring up something about the technology. With that money that you just voted on, is that going to get enough Chromebooks to completely have us be a one-on-one initiative quota fulfilled?
That's our intention. Once we get this purchase done, and then we also have the smart schools money that we're allocating towards it, that would purchase, we will have 850 more devices than we had last year, which will put us in a position for every kid to have their own Chromebook.
Okay, because unfortunately, we're doing the best we can, but my son does not have a Chromebook. And, I have a concern about the bring your own device, just in the sense of the management piece and the firewalls in place, and how just the security of just bringing, an expensive device to school and having it, have a higher risk of dropping and whatever. But, that's just one point of view, but.
And a very valid point of view.
Okay, and the security piece of that. So right now, is there an approved list of all the instructional apps available to the educators in the district? Because the Pear Deck that I'm living it, I think it's probably one of the most innovative, amazing opportunities for a teacher to do the teacher paced and student paced at the same time. And it's a brilliant, affordable component. And I think I did my research correct that we do not have that available to the teachers in the district yet, especially at the elementary level, even though I live it and we're using it at middle school and high school. Is Pear Deck available or Nearpod?
Yes, so we do have many Google add-ons. We do have Pear Deck available. Nearpod, we just got our subscription yesterday through BOCES. So both of those are available. And I've been sending out information to the staff on a regular basis. And really, Pear Deck came from the staff, if I could be honest. Last year, many staff members were experimenting with the free version. We had a lot of requests for Pear Deck and Nearpod, specifically that we could purchase the upgraded versions of both of those. So just to give a few other examples, we have Screencastify. We also purchased something for the language department. That's an application for conjugating verbs in Spanish and French. We have Gizmos is on its way from BOCES for science labs. So there are many things, and it all really stemmed from teacher requests from the spring in terms of things that worked really well with not just content, but really with engaging students in a remote environment. So Pear Deck is currently available and people are using it. Really the next step is making sure that people who want to use it have the training. So as some of our BOCES purchases also come with model schools training that's included in the cost of the application.
And what about Cami?
We don't have Cami yet, but we did get very recently, our secondary teachers did request it, so we're looking into that. I got an email from about last week from some of the secondary teachers, so we are looking at it, but all of these applications are costs, so we have to keep, our budget in consideration as well. So we're trying to purchase the applications that we know will be used universally.
Okay, and what about instructional technology staff? Has there been any new hires or like a lead person that is available in Clayton Huey in particular? Do you have anybody?
We have dedicated staff to Clayton Huey and the middle school, high school.
Okay, but are they just current staff that are just taking on a lead role at each grade level, or do you have BOCES employees coming in and training everybody?
No.
Yeah, no, we don't have BOCES coming in. We didn't budget for additional staff. But we do have lots of, what we basically did, so I'll tell you, as part of our professional development, we have some teachers that are extraordinary and are stepping up in enormous ways. So one of the things that we're doing is we're building a bank of sort of tutorials We had a Superintendents Conference Day. We had two front-loaded Superintendents Conference days where, as the teachers came in prior to the start of school, we had an introductory day where some of the compliance things were done, and I gave a presentation. But then subsequent to that, there was a day and a half worth of teachers that led workshops on each of these different applications and supported each other. And then we basically were able to record some of those and provide sort of a bank of resources where teachers could go to and be able to go into a shared folder where they could access the professional development that was provided by colleagues and stepped up. So we are trying to, basically utilize some of our own resources and support each other and have little professional learning communities that are helping to support. Obviously, we are in a budget crunch. We're spending money, hand over fist in areas where we never spent it. And so it is a challenge. We recognize the need for the professional development. We also did encourage lots of, summer workshops in professional development anticipating this, and continue to certainly, approve people who are looking to, access resources.
And some of the model school days that I mentioned, BOCES is offering that virtually. So, in the past, where they would come in or we would send people to BOCES, for example, the Nearpod purchase, included in that purchase is professional development, but the majority of that will happen via Zoom.
The Stony Brook partnership too.
And through the Stony Brook partnership. And that professional development really started, almost immediately in the spring. And we have, large groups of teachers who really on their own have been doing professional development sometimes it's general Google Classroom, and sometimes it's some of these really specific apps that you mentioned.
Yes. I also feel that as much as the teachers need it, the children need it. And at the start of this meeting, when Dr. Massara was portraying that visual of seeing the children in the building and seeing their eyes and the expression in their eyes and being able to have that snapshot of the community back in the building and infusing all of that energy, there's a very sad story that we're all living the 3 days that we're all home from work, doing the best that we're all doing and trying to support all the limitations that we all have had to make sacrifices. But it's very sad that, when you have different family dynamics, we're living it, and, you can have all the tools in the world, but if you don't know how to use it, that's a family fight. When you come home and you think your kid did something, and then you're trying to understand the technology yourself, it's just so much stress. And I feel like, when my son told me that they didn't have a library this year, I understand that we can't have the physical contact with the paper and all of that. But I'm saying to myself, maybe there's time in the day. I don't know where we're going to find it, but the children need the support to understand, so that the teachers aren't taking on any more pressure that they're already taking on. It's just unbelievable. Yeah. And, I know that we're offering the best we can. We have a half an hour, allotted time during the day. You can, patch into someone who's there, but I am an educator. I live it. I'm very, very well seasoned in Google Classroom and things like that. Maybe we can have a committee where parents can bring to the table some supports to help our fellow parents. I do what I can with my friends and stuff like that, but maybe there are, again, free resources out there that we can tap into, because the kids need to know how to navigate all of this. They need instructional videos created, and I'm sure BOCES can have certain things available that we can just have as, an extra resource as well. It's just... Yeah,
I appreciate that, Ms. Lambiazzi, because what has happened, just as I talked about the teachers, we are doing that for kids, and actually in our administrative conversation last spring, Mr. Novi and some others started to build out some resources for parents. And we also, in particular in the middle school, I know some of that work was taking place where kids were building out videos to support each other. So please know that that work is taking place within our schools also. So as much as we are trying to provide the professional development to the kids, we do want to make it available and have resources for parents and have resources for kids as well. So your voice is being heard, and we are thinking about those things and having those conversations.
All right, well, thank you so much, and God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good.
Thank you, and we appreciate the kind words, and we'll continue to do our best. So thank you very much.
Some good thoughts, and we certainly, appreciate, your sentiments. We understand the pressure that all our teachers are under, and so thank you.
Okay, we got another hand up.
Oh,
McGill.
okay, I missed that one.
You missed me, George?
I was in the participants and I scrolled so quickly. You were up top.
You just didn't want to
even
see my
it.
hands.
Not true. You
Good
know that's
evening.
not true. Well,
Good evening. I just wanted to say thank you guys for all of your hard work. I have just a quick question. I had spoken with Mr. Thode about this, but it kind of plays into the notion of starting on September 21st, looking at capacity at the school. And obviously in light of Section 11's decision to postpone sports till 2021, I was hoping that maybe you guys would consider appointing individuals or coaches to run Department of Health compliant strength, speed, and agility training after school for the students during the traditional fall season, that perhaps students can stay after school on their cohort days, weather permitting, so that we can just start working on the social, emotional, physical well-being piece for some of these kids who were very much looking forward to starting something and having that not happen, but perhaps something different for them that we could make happen at school.
Yeah, thank you, Heather, for that, because, we all, we were all waiting for that announcement, and, it kind of wasn't, I think, a real big surprise. And, my family was, my daughters were, as upset as I know a lot of our kids were, within our school. So, we are, going to be moving forward with, some planning to try to see what we can do. And so we'll be working with Mr. Thode to, start thinking about, what do off-season workouts look like, and how can we do so in a responsible manner. So in the coming days and weeks, you'll be hearing more about that. And we do want to do what we can and try to work with, our kids and our coaches and try to make sure, because we know that, sound mind, sound body, like that's what makes for a happy kid. And we want to make sure that, we are addressing those things. So just hang tight, and I think we'll be moving forward to try to do so in a responsible manner soon.
That's great. Thank you so much.
You got it.
thank you, Heather.
You're welcome, George.
How we doing out there, Bill?
No more hands.
All right, are you sure that Heather's hand's not raised? Okay,
Let me check. Nope, still down.
all right. Okay,
Oh, wait. Oh, it's back up. Hold
I
on.
think it looked, oh, no, we do. I saw that one.
Oh, hold on. GL again.
Don't tell me you don't want to hear back from me.
There you go. You're on.
Wait, hold on 1 second. Am I allowed to be funny on this thing, or you guys can't do any humor?
Funny is
No,
good. You like funny.
All right, wait, listen. Hold on 1 second. This is a little recommendation from a science teacher. CK12. It's free. 7 through 12. Secondary. Free. CK12, Raina. You hear me?
I hear you.
We are.
It's free. It's magnificent. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know Steve as well.
Yeah.
I know him.
All right. Thank you.
How we doing, Bill?
Nobody else up.
Okay. All right, Bill, I'm gonna start making the announcements. If somebody pops up, just interrupt me, okay?
Okay.
Next Board of Ed meeting is Wednesday, October 7th, 2020. Right now, Ron, we're slated to be back in the boardroom, right?
We are, I would anticipate probably they may extend, but we'll see.
Right.
I
Okay.
don't know, we are, we're back at school, so I'm not sure why. But
Right.
we'll follow the guidance and, the board will make a decision on how we want to meet.
Okay, and that'll be we'll be there at 6 for exec, and then in some capacity, some way, the public is welcome to join us at approximately 7 o'clock.
Right.
And we're trying hard to get out of that exec at 7 o'clock for you, but just if we're a few minutes late, it's because we're trying to be thoughtful in what we're doing. So please forgive us if we come out a little bit late.
Hold on. There's a hand raised. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Let's see. It is Tongi.
Hi, this is new to me, so I don't know. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. My name is Tony and Rebecca. I have two students in Clayton Huey. You kind of already addressed the Chromebook issue because neither of my sons have one right now. But I was also a little bit concerned about the FLES program. I was watching the videos that were being presented to them, and they're like very young, and this is all new, and this remote learning is all new, and I feel like it's very overwhelming. My husband and I both work full time. My mother-in-law barely knows how to turn on a computer, and when I get home that's when we're doing the homework with them, and I feel like I'm almost pushing that topic to make sure that we're getting time for the reading and the writing and the social studies and all of that. I just feel like the videos were very in-depth as well. I was just a little bit concerned about that.
Okay, I honestly, that's not something I could specifically speak to right here. I could certainly ask Mr. Ritchie to contact you and talk to you a little bit more about that. But that sounds like a building specific thing, and so I think something you probably want to reach out to the building level administration on.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I really not sure how I can help on that one right at this moment. So
that's okay, thank you.
Yeah, you got it. Sure.
Thank you. How are we looking, Bill?
We're clear again.
Okay. All right, I'm going to end the meeting. Motion to move to executive session to discuss other matters, the disclosure of which would result in an unwarranted invasion of personal privacy. Motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
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 Yes. Motion carries unanimously. Ron, are we using the same code we used for executor earlier today?
That's perfect. Yep.
Okay, it is 8:35. Can we just take 5 minutes and meet back in exec at 8:40? This way, if anybody has to use the facilities or grab some ice cream, whatever you want. All right, we'll see you at 8:40. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Thanks, Bill.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Janine.
Thank you.
Good night.
Have a good night.
Good night.